Ephesians chapter 6. And it says from verse 4, it says, and you fathers, well, we talked about the children. All right, 1 to 3 talk about children obeying their parents and honoring their father and mother. And then we went on to verse 4, which says, and you fathers do not provoke or exasperate your children. And we were looking at how can a father, how can a parent exasperate or provoke the children? And we started talking about it last season. We talked about bullying, we talked about showing favoritism, we talk about questioning their intelligence, calling them stupid every time they do something wrong, comparing them to the other parent. You know, you fall out with your spouse or the parent, your father and mother of your child, and you know you're comparing them. You're just like your father. Look at you, you're no good. You don't do that to your children, and even using them as pawns. You know, you vex with your husband, you vex with your wife, you vex with that person. You know, you all might have been separated or divorced, and you're saying things about the other one to your children, forcing them to choose. Sometimes you're keeping them from their father or their mother. You don't do that. You're provoking the children, you're exasperating the children. We talk about comparing them to other children. You know, other parents, you know, with the children, why you can't be like, and why you can't be like, and look how they, and you do say things like that, you exasperate your children. And then we talk about unclear standards. Unclear standards. You tell a child to do something, and they do it, and no, do it over. You have to show them, you have to tell them what is expected of them. That's the only way they will learn. So we want to continue. Another thing that we do with children is what I call unexplained discipline. You need to tell your children what is right or what is wrong. You don't just beat your child because they do something, or discipline your child. We say beating, but you know, there are other ways to discipline. You need to explain, this is right, this is wrong. If you do this, you will be punished. If you don't do this and I expect you to do it, you'll be punished. Don't just punish them without telling them. In fact, don't tell them when you punish them, tell them before. Okay? So unexplained discipline could exasperate your children. You notice I pause. I'm going to pause after each one in case there are any comments or questions. So we move on to the other one.
All right, Dr. Richard, we have one comment that just says that's right. And
okay.
I just wanted to say, Dr. Richard, that sometimes I think personally that happens because children aren't allowed to ask questions. So
Yeah.
it's just a way that I
do what I say.
and this is how it had to be, and children aren't allowed to ask why or anything because it's seen as disrespect.
Right. When we talk about that, that's bullying. When you're bullying a child, you know, they could ask a question, but if they only say why, you tell them do something why, children need to know why they're doing things. Don't be offended if your child asks you why. I love my children to ask me questions. I always love the opportunity to explain. Maybe that's a teacher in me. But we need to tell our children why. Another thing is what I would call inconsistency. We are inconsistent. If something is wrong on Monday, it had to be wrong on Tuesday and on Wednesday. It can't be okay on Monday and then you're disciplining them for it on Tuesday. You have to be consistent. When you are inconsistent, children are confused. They don't know what they can do and what they cannot do. They don't know what is right and what is wrong. It can't be according to your mood. You have to be consistent. You set the ground rules, you set the rules, and the rules must stay the rules every single day. I pause again. No, let's continue. This one. Excessive or unreasonable discipline can cause your children to be exasperated. Excessive and unreasonable discipline. Parents may disagree because they don't find it's excessive and they don't find it's unreasonable. But you need to understand as a parent that there are levels of discipline. There are levels, and then you can't be disciplining your child for everything that they do wrong. Use the opportunity to teach them instead of disciplining them. Send them to the room, or you beat them with a belt, or you take away something from them. Every time they do something, children will be afraid of you, and they will be walking on eggshells. Be careful of punishing too often and too excessive. That could lead to abuse. You could be abusing. Many parents abuse their children. And I'm hoping that none of us here do this. Discipline should be reasonable. The punishment should fit the crime. It's the same way in law. A judge can't sentence a man to death because he stole something. The law doesn't provide for that. The punishment must fit the crime. So your child maybe talk back to you. You want to lock them out, or you want to slap them up, or no, you don't do that. And here's one punishment that some parents do, and I disagree with it totally and absolutely. You're sending your child to bed without dinner. Or you send them to school without breakfast. Or you don't get them done because they did something wrong. This is personal. I do not subscribe to that in any way. Has anybody here ever done that? Or has that ever been done to you? Anybody, talk to me. Because we were all children. Has that ever been done to you?
All right, Dr. Richards, we have a few comments in the chat. One says, yes, never beat your children when angry. Another said, oh Lord, help me. My kids are so wounded. I'm guilty of all of this. Another said, the Holy Spirit will definitely help you. I ask in every situation for help with my little sister. In my case, he will give you the wisdom in the moment and in the scripture. Another comment says, it was done to me, but I won't do this to my kids. Another says never, and another says nope.
Thank you.
First lady's hand is up.
Pastor Nicole.
Dr. Richard, sadly, I have to say that this was done to me many times by my mother. If there was something that she didn't approve of, she would punish me by not feeding me. And I would like to talk about it. I actually forgot about it as you raised it again. It just brought it back to me. And I remember that she would cook. My mother would cook and she would give everybody else food and she would give me nothing. And my sister, I remember one time she held food in her hand and brought what her hand could hold and give it to me. You know, I would never do that to my children. Never. I think parents who would have done that would have been in a place of frustration and really didn't know. I don't blame her for it, and I think for me, I have to release it because as I'm even talking about it, it really hurts. And it didn't happen once. It happened, more than once. And I remember my sister when it wasn't enough, and it didn't go on for one day, and when it wasn't enough, my sister would put the food in her pocket, and I think my mommy may have thought that she was giving me food. And I remember she said to my sister, the one just before me, she said, I find you eating fast and I'm watching her. And she said, I'm not eating fast. I just eating what you give me. And then she come and the food stick up in her clothes, all kind of thing. And she have to bring the food for me, but she have to hide to bring it so it have to stay in her pocket. She have to wait a little bit. Then she give me some money and she run back outside and that kind of a thing. And I kind of struggle with parents doing these kind of things, but I have to say that Oh, that's an evil thing to do. It may sound like a harsh word, but you can't. That's not love. And so, as I'm saying, at that point in time, she must have been going through her own frustrations. Parents at that time, and even us know, and they make decisions based on what they think at that time is the best thing, to do, Dr. Richards. And when they look back on it, they have regrets, you know. But
Yeah, but
that's
you
so,
don't do that to children. I don't
yeah,
subscribe to that at all. At all. That is abuse. That is abuse.
But
Yeah.
I was abused. Okay.
Well, I guess you were. Anyone else? Anybody else?
Dr. Richards, we just have two comments that says that is extreme, and another says wow.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Yeah, so you don't do. What about some parents? They burn the children's hand, put it over, you like to touch, you like to teach, and they put it in the fire. They burn their hand to teach them a lesson. I don't subscribe to that either. You don't, and that is abuse. That is abuse. How about this one? This never happened to me, but I've heard about it many
Before you go
times.
into that one, Dr. Richards, we have a hand up, and we
Okay.
also have a comment that says, putting your children to kneel on a grater.
All right. Well, that's the one I was coming to, but go ahead.
My apologies, Alistair. You should be able to unmute now.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. That thing about putting the hand in the fire, my aunt did that to my cousin, and she was only 5 years old, and she had taken some money to buy a snack. How much a snack was that time ago? She's 51 years old now, and she held that till my aunt was sick and dying. She never turned up. She didn't even come to her funeral. She remembered that, and she carried that all through her life, and she was never close to my aunt and didn't even care. So yeah.
It affects you, and sometimes you take it all through life. It does. You don't treat children like that. You don't do that. All right. Anyone else or Joshua?
We have three other comments that says, my mother used to put me to kneel on a grater for hours. Another says, I was put to kneel on a grater and raw rice. And another says, how about licks in your sleep?
Yeah.
And another says, my son has tried to go to bed without eating. If I tell him something he doesn't like, but I send him to get something to eat.
Yeah. Well, that's the reverse. But yeah, so kneeling on a grater is another thing. How could parents do that to the children? Some of them kneeling with two big stone in their hands. How could parents do that to children? You don't do that. You're exasperating the children. You're frustrating the children. You don't do things like that. And that is abuse of children. Someone says, somebody says, you're waiting until they fall asleep to beat them. They do something wrong and you didn't do anything, you wait until they're sleeping. That is the worst thing, to be awakened, with a lash, with pain, with a belt. And I know let me just add this before you comment. I know what used to be the long time, and sometimes you tie the children to the bed. You tie them so you could beat them so they can't run away. That happened. I don't know if it still happens, but that has happened when I was growing up. It didn't happen to me, but I know of friends that it happened to. Yes, Joshua, you were saying.
So we have a couple of comments in the chat. One says, yes, Professor, me. Another says, hands up in the air in a corner. We have a few comments agreeing. Another says, madness. And another says, good night, family. I was about to say the big stone. I'm not sure what that means, but
yeah, the big stone in the hand, yeah.
Oh, okay. Firstly, your hand is up.
Dr. Richards, I feel like I need to not be in this session because I think that I was abused, you know, and I'm saying that because I I have experienced the kneeling on the grater and
Mm.
putting two things, you know, in my hand. But this wasn't from my mother, my sister, my bigger sister did that to me, and you know, and I couldn't come off of it. And when my mother found out, she beat my bigger sister for doing that, you know. She told her she's
Mhm.
not authorized to discipline me like that. And one of the things my mother loved to do, I have to say loved to do, you know, when if we did something she didn't like, you know, you're asleep. And while you're sleeping, Doc, you do even, you know, you just feel the licks blows, you know, the dishes in the sink. While you're up, she's not saying anything, huh? So she waits for you to go to sleep, and then she comes and she beats you while you're sleeping. I mean, I was abused. You know, and these are things that you don't really think about, but now that you're speaking about it and you're looking back and you know, and these things are things that I forgot, but as we're talking
Yeah.
about it, it's just like remembrance, and I guess it's part of to deal with deliverance too, because I have to
Mhm.
free myself of this because and I remember my mother beat me, Doc, with a cable, and wasn't even me. It wasn't even me. Somebody else did, and I got licks for it. And it's one big cable until my fingernails started bleeding. And when I lift my hands, I saw her look at the wall. And when I look at the wall, there was blood on the wall. And that's what made her stop. You know, that is a beat. I can't beat our children like that, Doc. I really I have to come back to say these people may have been stressed during that era because when you look back on that, something is not, you know, not right.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. And I'm hoping that, we, those of us, because there are things that we may not have remembered before, and it's coming now, it's coming up now, like you said. These are something we need to free ourselves from. We need to do that. Okay, so let's move on.
We have a couple more comments after Richards.
Mm-hmm.
We have one that says I got a galvanized pipe across my waist. I could not walk.
Mm.
Another agreed with First Lady and saying I used to be told to go pick the whip to get licks with.
Yeah, imagine
Another
that. Yeah,
says another
yeah.
says I got burned in my hand by my older sister. Another says a cable was my belt and the corner was my mirror. Another
Hmm.
says I was beaten with anything on hand, belt, pin, pan, pot, spoon, and for things
And
I
that's the
didn't
next
do.
thing. Yeah, whatever they find, whatever they put their hands to, they get in licks with it. Right? And we are talking about these things so that you would understand that these are the things we ought not to do. Remember, we're talking about righteousness, righteous living, living right. And very often we think living right has to do with going to church and praying and all these things. Yes, these things are part of what we do, but we are also parents. We are children. We are brothers, we are sisters, we are co-workers, and we have to exist in this world, and we ought to live right at every level. So we move on. And somebody mentioned it just now. Another way we can exasperate our children is disciplining out of anger or frustration. You do not discipline your children when you are angry. Take a deep breath, take a walk, count to 10, whatever it is, but don't, because when you are angry, you can kill. An angry man can kill, an angry woman can kill, and you can abuse your children, hurt your children, damage your children because you are angry. Don't discipline them out of anger. You have to be sure when you are disciplining your children that you are thinking right, you are thinking level-headedly. You have to be sure that this is what you would have done, whether you're feeling angry or not. Let it be because of what they did, not because of how you feel. And sometimes, even as Pastor Nicole was saying, sometimes because parents are frustrated, sometimes it's because you're a single parent, you don't have a partner, so you expect your children to be straight, and no, never discipline the children when you are angry or out of anger. I'm not saying, because you can be angry, but don't let the anger be the motivation for disciplining the children, because it can get out of control and you can do things that will be detrimental to the health of your children. I pause again. Anyone?
We have a couple of comments, Dr. Richards. Another says, one says, my uncle made me kneel on a grater. Another says, I think that is how they were treated. Another says, sometimes when I look at the scars on my skin, I got so vexed with my dad because he only likes to beat us with heavy metal on our shin bone and our back.
Yeah, that is so sad. So we move on. Another way we can exasperate or provoke a child out of humiliation. All right? You humiliate them in front of friends. You wait until the friend there and you slap them or you quarrel with them. So your friends or even your siblings. You don't do that. You have to listen, you have to build your children, not break them down. You do not humiliate your children because they did something wrong. How would you feel if you were humiliated in front of somebody you knew, in front of your co-workers, in front of somebody in the public? How would you feel? And we feel children don't have feelings. We think that as parents, that they would not feel it as much as an adult. No, children feel things. They are embarrassed. So we have got to be careful how we treat our children, especially in public, in church, and a child do something and you bawl at them in front of the whole church. No, you don't do that. Or you go into their school and you beat them in front of the other children in school. Don't do that. I pause again. Anybody? Has that ever happened to you? No?
No, Dr. Richards, there's no comments.
Thank God.
in the
Thank
chat.
God for that. Another way we can exasperate our children is by threats. You're threatening them. You're frightening them with threats. You see that test you're going to do, you see that exam you're going to do, don't come and bring no B or C or D or F for me, you know. Otherwise, don't come home. And you threaten them. No, you should do it in the reverse. Encourage them. Let them know that they can, that they are able. Let them know that you will support them no matter what, but you just want them to try their best. But when you threaten them, how would you feel you're going to do an exam and your father, your mother tell you, you only A's they're expecting? That's going to mess with your mind. You don't do that to your children. You don't put that burden on them, especially if you know your child is not, your child is not capable of making an A, but you feel that is motivation. That is not. So have you ever been threatened by your parents?
Richards, we have a couple comments. We have one saying, if I did something wrong, my mother would beat and quarrel for the whole neighbors to hear. Another says, yes, I'm guilty of this. Another agrees, and another says, so true, so true. And I just wanted to say, Dr. Richard, sometimes it is subtle. Sometimes they do something and they don't outright threaten you, but they say, all right, go ahead, do what you want. You see that do what you want, it's not do what you want. It's a threat, it's a warning. I'm just saying it happened to me too much times. They say, go ahead, do what you want, and I do what I want, and that was it.
We talked about that last night, that part of psychological bullying. Psychological bullying. And parents do that. Another one, not allowing children to pursue their own dreams. Not allowing your children to pursue their own dreams. A lot of us want our children to live out our dream. We want them to do what we did. We want them to follow in our footsteps. But our children are not us. When I did common entrance, it wasn't SCA in those days, it was common entrance. My school of choice, my first choice was QRC. I am thankful that my boys got to go to that school. But even if they didn't pass for it, that would not have affected me. I am glad because in a way they're living out my dreams. They've lived out and continue to live out my dreams. But we have to understand that they will not be, our children are not us. And okay, in school, I did academics. I have qualifications in accounting and in management. That is what I pursued. I don't push my children to go that way. They will do what they want to do. I want them to be the best that they can be. And the only way they can be that way is if they pursue their dream, what they're skilled to do, what they are led to do, what they feel is their calling. You have to encourage that. And sometimes we expect more than our children are able to give. Allow your children to dream their own dreams and pursue their own dreams. My biggest son, not the 3 J's, my biggest son, his name was David. When David, first of all, when he passed his common entrance, he cried because he also wanted to go, I think, to QRC, and he passed for Trinity College. And he cried on that day the results came out. Now people are fighting to get into Trinity. David didn't want to go to Trinity. And I remember when I went to pick him up at school and they had the results and I was walking back to work because the primary school was close to where I worked. And we walking the road and he's crying and a man stopped and asked, what is going on? And I told him, well, he didn't pass the school. And the man stayed and motivated him and talked to him, not knowing it's a good college the boy passed for. But he didn't want to go to that particular college. Now, when he went, you couldn't say anything bad about that school after he went to that school. But the thing is, why I'm telling you all this is that his career, he decided to do music. I did accounting, I did management, and he pursued music. And I could have said to him, no, you're not doing music. No, that is not for you. That'll make money. And, I could have said all of that. But I was wise enough, I think, I should say, to allow him to pursue his dream. And now, my big son, David, he has traveled the world. He has played for people like Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond and all these people. He has traveled the world playing music. And he is reputed to be one of the best drummers and bass guitars in TNT in the Caribbean because he pursued his own dreams. We have to understand children have their dreams. And not only have their dreams, the dreams are placed in them because God has them. Listen, again, let me use my big son as an example. The kind of people that he has interacted with and whose life he has spoken into, because he's a believer and he loves the Lord. And he has interacted, he's very intelligent and he's very knowledgeable, and he has interacted with people. God has used him, placed him in that space. If I had told him, no, you're not doing music, he would not have been able to live according to the purpose that God put him on this earth for. Parents, please allow your children, as long as you know, you can guide them. You can guide them, but don't stop them from pursuing their dreams. I pause again.
We have a couple of comments in chat, Dr. Richards.
Mm-hmm.
One says, I tell mine, whatever they do, be the best.
Mm-hmm.
Another says, even when you make good grades, you find faults. Another says, yes, I had no help, and still, if you could bring me 90%, I would hear you could do better. Another says, some parents tell their children, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made, but sometimes you go about it so wrong.
Yeah.
And a couple agreeing with that. Another says, I got so much of it. I brought home A+, and it still was not enough. Another says, wow, this must have been hard for you. Another says, I wanted to do cosmetology in school, I was made to study business, but what the enemy planned for evil, God used for his good. And a couple of comments agreeing with that. Another says, if I got 99% out of the 100, my dad would ask where the other 1% was. I cannot recall ever being congratulated by him for doing well academically. That is sad when I think about it.
Yeah, this is what we do to our children.
We have 2 hands up, Brother Jack and Sister Michelle.
Reverend Jack.
Yes, good night to everyone. I could remember when I used to work Ministry of Agriculture. A colleague told me that a woman used to discipline her son by letting him walk the street with just a jersey on, with no pants. And I find that was very horrible, you know, and very humiliating. I felt upset when she told me that. Make this was over 10 years, walk the street, you know, with just a jersey on with no pants on.
Yeah, that is sad. You don't do that to your children. That's humiliation. That's the point we were making earlier. When you humiliate your children, you don't do that. Because remember, and we damage them psychologically when we do things like that. Thank you, Brother Jack. Who's the next person?
Good evening, everyone.
Right.
Pastor, hear this now. I probably the only parent that came into the school and hit my son some hard lash to the back of his back in front of all his peers. He was going to St. George's College. I keep on warning him. I say, son, your mommy tired. Don't let mommy come in the school. But they hear any teachers and they love him, but they find he walks too much. Like he's the teacher of the school. So I said, no, he can't be doing that. As soon as the classes start, he's out, walking up and down. I said, son, I'm hearing that you're walking up and down in the people's school and you're supposed to be in your class. No, mommy, you're not doing that. I said, okay, I'll find out. I said, oh, let me come in, It will be a horse of a different color. If no, mommy, I wouldn't do things like that. But my sisters, and they enter the school and they hear the same reports. I said, okay, I'll come in early in the morning. So I didn't tell him anything. So when I entered the school, the teacher was there and she said, you want mommy? I said, yes. She said, this is what's happening, what Leon's doing. I said, okay, just call him for me now, please. And when I call him, I asked him in front of the teacher, and he admit that he has been walking up and down all over the place and not sitting in the class itself. And I said, son, the teacher has a degree and she's teaching you. You know that, right? And me asked mommy, I said, so why would you not sit down in the class and be taught? You don't have your degree as yet, but she has hers. I said, you know what? I'll put 2 thump on your back. So I really did that in front. So the teacher said, no more, don't put no more. I said, no, I want him to know I'm very serious. I'm concerned. As a mother, I want the best for him. I don't ever beat my children. But this was too sickening. And after that, Pastor, as I went all on the mission field and all those stuff, and I left him to do whatever he wants. And out of that, all our licks he got, he passed all his subjects. And I was so proud of him. I said, son, you see what I little licks to do? Your mommy don't beat you, but you want me to embarrass you in front of people. And that's the only thing I ever did with my sons. I never disrespect them. Only that time, nothing else. Because drive me off the rockers.
All right. And thank you so much for sharing. And you did this because you were angry. Now remember we said don't discipline children because you are angry. And don't humiliate your children. Now there are things that you can do as a parent. You ought to know your children. And there are things that you can do to motivate them to do what is right and to cause them not to do what is wrong. I do not ever advocate humiliating the children in front of other children. There may be extreme circumstances where from what you shared, I didn't think that was an extreme circumstance. But there may be extreme circumstances when a parent has to take matters into their own hands and do things for the good of the child. And it may come to situation where you have to confront them in front of others, in front of the children, in front of other children, in front of teachers. And that may happen. But that should not be, that should be a last resort. That should be, look, I've tried everything else and it is not working. I have warned him or her, and you get to that point. But that is a point that you get to. That is not something you do because you're upset or you're angry, and you go and do it so that you want to, if I embarrass him, I'll put a stop to it. This is not something that I'd advocate at all. All right, so I want you all to understand me clearly, because even though we are talking about things that we don't do, there may be a situation, a circumstance where you really have to take drastic action based on your check to keep them from going the wrong way. For example, maybe they're getting involved in gangs or doing the, interfering with boys or girls or that kind of thing. And sometimes you have to take drastic action. And you do that because you don't want them to get to the place where police have to take the action for you. And that I understand. But we are talking about, the not ordinary run-of-the-mill discipline. You don't do that. Okay? Anyone else?
Dr. Richards, I saw Sister Lisa's hand is up, but I don't know. I saw her put it down.
Lisa.
I don't know if she still wants to speak.
Lisa.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Right.
I'm just loving this topic because, it's a reason why it came up. A long time they used to say, how you bring up your children a long time, it was the better way. Because look at me, nothing can happen to me and thing, because I remember I given rudeness and I get relics. My father sent me out the road and I walking slow, I just feel cookie broom on my foot and I get a speed and run up the road, and although they're saying long time was a better way, it still have some instances when it was not. So, it kind of confusing a bit, and then now it's not have like long time where they say the village raise a child. Everything's so different now. They move the religious instructions in school, punishment in school. So, it's all in all, it just probably have to pray, and just continue to try and, as he's saying, live right, bring up your children the right way possible, That's just my little contribution.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And that's another thing. We sometimes discipline the way we were disciplined. So we used to get the belt, so we figured that's the way to do it. And, we were the ones that you kneel down with on the grater, so we feel we should do that too. We live in a different era. We need to understand this is a different era to the era that we were brought up. And there are certain things that that may have worked when we were growing up that can't work now. And not only that, even as you heard Pastor Nicole said, a lot of it has been abuse. We have been abused. You don't abuse your children because you're abused. But anyway, anyone else?
Yes, Dr. Richards, we have a comment that says there's a difference between discipline and borderline abuse. So we have 3 hands up: Sister Sheila, Elder Sheldon, and Minister Jiva, in that order.
Yes, let's go ahead. Sister Sheila?
Good night, everyone. I have heard it being said on many occasions that you see these forms of punishment that you would have mentioned here tonight, that better they do it than the police have to do it. That's my question.
Okay, I didn't quite hear clearly what was said. So are they repeated or somebody just tell me who heard?
I was saying, Pastor, that the forms of punishment that you would have mentioned here tonight, I've often heard it said that it's better they do it, the parents, than the police have to do it.
Right. Yes, and I said that just now. Thank you. There are certain circumstances where it's it's extreme, where if you don't take action, that will lead them down the wrong road. So there are certain drastic situations where you have to take drastic action, because as you said, if you don't do it, then the police will do it for you. All right. So, and we're talking about, there are situations like that. Those are the exceptions. So I agree with you, right? Sometimes you have to do things to take these measures so that the children would straighten out and they don't fall into the hands of the police. Elder Sheldon, I believe, is the next one.
Yes, good night, everyone. Dr. Richard, I'm listening to this and realizing, oh boy, like we were really abused growing up, boy. Right? Because I could identify with a lot of these things. I mean, to say I did not get it greater and all these other things, but a lot of it I got. Right, I got licks with a bread. I get licks with anything my mother could have find. I get licks with wet kitchen cloth, and that is not that the sting, right? I get licks till I get cut, right? The embarrassment. I remember my mother embarrassed me in front of my friend, and even when she found out that what she embarrassed me about, it was not so, she never apologized, ever apologized. And that is something that, that had always baffled me, right? That most of the times they never, ever said that they were sorry. Even when they found out that they were wrong, right? They never said that they were sorry, right? And something else that I also recognize is that when you were talking about opportunities, because I recognize that, because certain opportunities were taken away from her, right? She basically withheld certain opportunities from me also, because I remember when she was growing up, she had an opportunity to go to Canada, and her elder sister, convinced my grandmother, her mother at the time, not to send her, right? And I believe she did not let go of that. And when I was about 16, an opportunity arose for me to migrate permanently to the States. And she told me, no, I'm not going. Right? And I'm saying to man, to this day, I always wonder, had that opportunity was given to me, what doors would have been open to me? Right? So I look at these things, and I just say, because I tell myself, my children, I will never do my children that, because I know my daughter wants to go, and I say, wherever you want to go, however I can make it happen for you, I'm going to make it happen for you, right? So yeah, so I can identify with a lot of things that are being said here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Elder Sheldon. Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of us could identify, based on what we're talking about. I think Minister Jeeva is the next person.
Hi, good night, family. I really enjoyed the discussion tonight because in 2020, I remember going to the Lord, seeking him, asking him how to discipline my son, right? Because I was doing it the way that my parents was doing it, the same way, the same dysfunctional way, the same abusive way, quarreling and the beating and stuff. And I realized I wasn't getting any results. And like the more I talk with him, rough, and the more I beat him, it's the worst he was getting. He was retaliating for that. And I said, Lord, how to do this thing? And I remember he started to give me scriptures like slow to anger, quick to listen, use soft words, because harsh words stirs up anger. And then one night in prayer, he gave me this, my rod and staff comforts. And it broke me to tears, because the Lord is saying, my rod and my staff comforts you. And we just use that word rod, and it don't comfort our children. It hurts them, it abuses them. So this, what you're saying here tonight, is just confirmation, because I am living in a community where people don't really agree with me not beating the way that, or disciplining them in the way that they used to. They find it not working. I say it work yet. You didn't see the results yet. The Bible tell me to stay, to endure until the end. And if God said to do it this way, that is what I'm doing. So I'm thanking God for this. All of us here, I believe, was abused at some time. So this teaching came for our healing. It came for our healing.
Indeed,
Amen.
indeed. Amen. But I know we're enjoying it, but we have to stop here for tonight. I know we could go on and on because this is stirring up some things in us, bringing back things or memory that maybe we would have forgotten. But maybe this is the reason why it's happening now before we go into that 3-day fast. So that we can get rid of it, we can cleanse ourselves of it, we can be released of some of these things. We will continue tomorrow evening. At the same time, I want to pause here because Minister Noel is supposed to share with us concerning what is happening on the 16th of December. So let me just say thank you so much. We will continue where we left off tonight. We will continue that tomorrow, God's willing, at the same time. And maybe between now and then, you can probably go back in your mind. Some of us need to do some forgiving of our parents. We need to release our parents as we remember some of the things that, we would have done. And we need to vow, that we would not do that to our children. Don't let that legacy continue. Do not let that ancestral thing that happened from the parent and the parent's parent and right on to you. We need to release it. Let it stop with you. Let it stop you, or let it stop with your parent. You don't carry it on. Amen. God bless you. Minister Noel, we want to hear from you at this time.
Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Pleasant good afternoon. It's happening. It's happening. Our end of year celebration and Pastors Appreciation Day is happening on the 16th of December, 2023. The venue, Macaulay Community Center, Claxton Bay. The time, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Yes, maxis are available for members and families. Just $80 a head. Dress code formal, elegantly casual, or casual. Don't forget family members of Live Right Ministries who have small businesses. We want to give you the opportunity to market or sell your product on the day. If you're interested, please contact Minister Noel at 464-0713 by no later than the 7th of December, 2023. Family of Live Right. We have a gift exchange with each other, no more than $20 and up. It's a time to celebrate and let's come out and have fun. The team and I have a wow of a time for you to sit back and enjoy from start to finish. It leaves me to want to let the cat out of the bag, but I can't. You got to be there. It's like a wow experience. I tell you much. You got to be there. We have a lot in store for you all. Come, call me, 464-0713. Let's come out and celebrate and have a grand time. Our dollar auctions is backed by popular demand. All donated items are welcome, as you would have donated for the first auction. Come on out. Let's have some fun. Let's celebrate, celebrate. Let's celebrate. Come, let's celebrate. Woo!
Thank you, Minister Noel. So, folks, we want to ask if you have any questions.